There are positions that we hold that are unfortunately untenable with the American people. So you try to find one that is the best version of that, and then you try to find how can you make it fit with the American people.
Conservative commentators like Charlie Kirk are having a moment of self-reflection, realizing that the majority of the American people are not, in fact, in favor of some of their far-right policies, including doing away with reproductive rights. And he's not the only conservative experiencing this moment of self-reflection. Even self-proclaimed theocratic fascist Matt Walsh admitted that his beliefs do not align with the will of the American people. And we're gonna get to him in just a moment, but here's some context for the clip that we just showed you of Charlie Kirk. He was responding to a despondent MAGA fan who apparently felt that Trump has abandoned the pro-life, anti-abortion crowd after declaring that abortion is a states' rights issue. Let's watch that full exchange.
There is an email we got here from John, which is, Charlie, I'm not voting for Trump anymore. What is the point if Trump compromises on abortion, even if he has a better chance of winning? Why not offer everyone free school, healthcare, UBI? That would help him win an election, right? So based on what do you think, whatever it takes to win, compromise when you can't govern. Trump has abandoned the pro-life cause, so he doesn't deserve my vote. I have never said you should do whatever it takes to win. I've never said that. I've never alluded to that. However, you want to try to have the most morally clear position that can fit within the popular will of the people so you can get political power. There are positions that we hold that are unfortunately untenable with the American people. So you try to find one that is the best version of that, and then you try to find how can you make it fit with the American people. That is the whole idea of the will of the people and the sovereign. And sometimes the people, they don't want the morally correct and clear position.
Well, maybe the people don't find an all-out ban, a national ban on abortion to be the moral, position on that issue. But, Charlie Kirk feels that he has the moral stance, but is willing to waver on that moral stance if it means that it's going to help his preferred candidate win. And you know what? To be honest, that's what it's like to live in a democracy where you have people with all different types of political beliefs coming together and deciding on who they want to lead them in their country, right? And so I disagree with Charlie Kirk politically, obviously, but I want to give him a little bit of credit for recognizing, hey, we can't have it our way 100% of the time, and there does need to be some sacrifice isn't the right word.
Compromise?
Compromise, that's the right word.
Pausing here to deliver some honest truth as we do in our news coverage as well. TYT is facing challenges, guys, as the entire industry is. You know who could make the difference? You. If you hit the join button below, it's gonna make all the difference and keep us in business. We appreciate you, thank you. Part of it is nuance, and I was gonna say the same thing, and I wanna come back to that, right? But there's also the parts that are clear. So this is him and Matt Walsh admitting our policies are not popular. And not on little fringe things. Here, I'll give you an example of mine in a second as well, but on really the core of their policies. So abortion has been literally the #1 issue for right-wing voters my entire life. So now all of a sudden, they realize, as we've been telling them all along, 70% of the country is not on their side. And they're like, well, that sucks, because then we'd lose political power. But then how would our rich donors get tax cuts then? So, and that, guys, that's the whole essence of it. They never meant it on abortion. And as Anna and I have showed you on a couple of occasions, in the 1970s, 5 years after Roe v. Wade was decided, it was the first time that Republicans and evangelical preachers said that they were against abortion because they saw that it worked in local elections in animating people voting against Democrats.
They used it as a tool to galvanize voters, but voters have changed considerably since the 1970s.
Yeah, back then it worked with the voters because they're like, oh my God, the Democrats are killing babies, so you have to vote for tax cuts for the rich, and people would fall for that, right? So now it's the exact opposite. People are not falling for it, and in fact, if you try to that nonsense about taking away reproductive rights of women, you're gonna lose elections. And that's why Sean Hannity, Charlie Kirk, Matt Walsh, they're in a cold sweat panic. And they're like, oh, we're gonna lose elections. because we suck and our positions are totally unpopular. I mean, they also talk about, Matt Walsh is going to talk about how some of their positions on guns and other immigration, et cetera, are unpopular. These are the core issues that they have. And so we don't have that problem. And I showed in my book, Justice is Coming, almost all of our positions, at least here at TYT, and certainly the progressive economic positions are intensely popular. So I guess in a sense, we're lucky because the American people definitely agree with us. Where you get into nuance is when your positions are, you believe are morally correct, but remember, we all decide together in a democracy what is morally correct.
Right.
Because in the case of abortion, they say, Gog and Magog say that this is the morally correct position, so you have to agree. Well, no, the rest of us think the morally correct position is to let women control their own bodies and not to have the government enslave them for 9 months and say you no longer have freedom. I don't think that's a moral position at all. I think it's a deeply immoral position. But I'm going to get to the nuance of the positions that we have that are not popular and how you should deal with that after we hear from Matt Walsh and others.
And then look, one other thing I'll say about abortion rights is when the public is accustomed to having a certain right for 50 straight years, and then that right is taken away from them, that's gonna galvanize voters to retaliate. And that's what the Republican Party experienced during the midterm elections. And you see the Biden administration, the Biden camp, I should say, really looking to use that issue as part of their campaigning so Biden gets reelected. And so I think people like Charlie Kirk, like Matt Walsh, see that tactic, see that strategy from a mile away and are trying to find ways to lessen the blow of Democrats using that abortion issue as part of their campaigning. Now let's pivot over to Matt Walsh, okay? So as we previously mentioned, Matt Walsh made a similar admission just last week. He was responding to Kari Lake's endless flip-flopping on the topic of reproductive rights and abortion after the state Supreme Court in Arizona issued a ruling that would allow a super old 1800s law to come into effect that effectively bans abortion. So let's see how Matt Walsh reacted to that whole situation.
If she did the same thing on immigration or gun control, I don't think those conservatives would be defending her. And guess what? The most right wing, most conservative position on those topics is also not the mainstream. It's not where most people are. If you're truly conservative on these issues, you most likely take that far. I know I certainly do. You take that principle farther than the mainstream does.
Okay, so Matt Walsh is different from Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk seems willing to compromise in order to gain political power, whereas Matt Walsh makes a bizarre argument that is essentially the antithesis of what Charlie Kirk is advocating for. Let's watch.
It's wrong. It's if you care about that sort of thing, it is morally wrong. It's wrong on principle to come out and in support of, well, women have to make choice. Sometimes you have to make the choice to kill your baby. It's just a choice that has to be made. And also, it is politically suicidal. It is not going to work. It is the strategy the Republican establishment has been using for decades. It is not new. This is no different from what John McCain would do, or Mitt Romney, or any of the Bushes, okay? Jeb, George, any of the Georges. Has it been a path to conservative dominance in government at any point in the last 30, 40 years, huh? No.
No compromise. That will ensure Republican dominance in politics.
Yeah, well, look, we're the fairest show in America, so I'm gonna give Matt Walsh credit on a couple of things. So I understand what he's saying about that. We say this similar thing with like all the Democrats who pretended to be Republicans and they thought that was a winning strategy. But there's a giant difference between us and Matt Walsh in that regard still, because we told the Democrats, why don't you just stick with the policies that are our policy that are super popular?
Right.
Like Claire McCaskill, why don't you fight for higher minimum wage, which is very popular in Missouri, but she wouldn't do it. And she's like, oh yeah, I agree with the Republicans. We should, cut taxes on the rich and stuff. And that's a losing strategy because you're saying the other side is right. But the part where Walsh is wrong is, yes, but the position you're defending has to be popular, right? So now here's another thing that I'll say that Matt Walsh is right about. That ad that Kari Lake put out there with the cheesy piano music at the et cetera, she's 100% advocating for a pro-choice position. I don't like Trump and her are trying to pretend that pro-choice is now pro-life.
I know.
They're like, now I made the decision to have my babies, but you could make the decision to not have them.
That's
I know that's pro-choice.
That's totally pro-choice.
That's 100% pro-choice.
No, but what makes me so sick about these politicians, Cenk, is they don't stand for anything. They have no principles, no values. The only value they have is their obsession with power. That's the only thing they value, right? Power, power. I'll do anything for power. So like, okay, sure, yes. If you want to give Matt Walsh credit for digging his heels in and saying these are my values and I'm not going to compromise on them, okay, fine. But politically speaking, you can maintain your values, right? Without immediately flipping to the other side as soon as you experience a little tiny bit of political turbulence.
Yeah, here, I'll show you how I think it's the right way to do it. So just to be clear, Charlie Kirk and Matt Walsh agree that their conservative positions are unpopular.
Right.
Where they disagree is Charlie Kirk says, then let's make compromises with what we pretended was our position so we could win the elections, because really we don't care about any of these issues, we just want the tax cuts, right? So whereas Matt Walsh says, to his credit, no, I actually do kind of care about these issues, even though we're gonna get slaughtered on this.
Yeah, okay? I think Matt Walsh isn't just about the tax cuts. I think Matt Walsh is genuine in his like very conservative beliefs.
Yeah, for better and for worse, for sure. Yeah. But so what's the right way to handle it? Look, we were on the unpopular side on gay marriage for for a long time on the Young Turks, right? So we were in the minority for at least a decade as we argued in favor of complete rights for LGBTQ community and for gay marriage. And so what did we do? Did we say, well, okay, let's go along with the Democrats? And remember back then, Joe Biden, Barack Obama, et cetera, Hillary Clinton, they were all against gay marriage. They never meant that, they were lying the whole time. But they thought it was politically expedient to throw some members of the community under the bus. So you didn't necessarily have to run on that issue, but what you had to do was convince your fellow Americans. And that's what we did here. And so that's what a lot of the progressive movement did, and we won. And now over 70% of Americans believe that gay marriage is the moral position, and that of course they should have the same rights as us. But when you're not winning, it doesn't mean that you give up, and it doesn't mean that that's the number one thing that you feature in your campaign. It means that you fight for it to the best of your abilities, and you do the things that are popular while you convince people about the things that you have not won on yet. And I think gay marriage is a perfect example.
I know. I don't think they can win on banning abortion.
I know, so I want them to try for the rest of the time.
Yeah, I mean, good luck. Because again, it's such an intimate, personal situation. And I think people like to think of all political issues as black and white. All political issues, right? And they forget the nuances that exist in every political issue that's being debated. Reproductive rights happen to be one of them. The way conservatives talk about it, you would think that it's just like they want to kill their babies and that's all it's about. But there's so many other issues wrapped up in the reproductive health care argument, right? Whether it be complications with the fetus, complications that put the mom's life in danger, complications that might have to do with the viability of the fetus that puts the woman's future fertility in jeopardy. Like there's all these healthcare related questions that they don't delve into because they think of it as a black and white issue. In reality, it's a healthcare issue that should be left up to the woman, her family, and the doctors.
Yeah, look, when we're talking about morality, unfortunately, a lot of people think that their version of morality is the only version of morality. And that's not anywhere near true.
Morality is subjective to some extent.
To a giant extent.
Yeah.
So like they think they win the argument by quoting the Bible, which is, by the way, I'll tell you for the 100th time, the Bible's pro-abortion. Read Numbers 5:11 through 31. God orders a priest to carry out an abortion if he thinks the wife cheated on the husband, okay? So you should actually care about the one thing that you stake your whole career on, right? You should actually read it for the first time in your life. But anyway, if you say to us, because of the Bible, my morality is correct. First of all, it's your interpretation of the Bible. Okay, so no, I'm not gonna cede my judgment to your judgment. We could both read, right? Second of all, we're not all Christians, and we're not all your particular sect of Christianity. So no, we don't have to follow your so-called morality. Actual morality is caring about human beings and freedom, the thing that you pretend that you've been in favor of the whole time. And now you say, oh, well, the minute it disagrees with a portion of the Bible, that's it, take away their freedom. I'm the more moral one. No, you're the more immoral one. But if you want to make the case that that is the position that all Americans should have, I get it. Go ahead and make that case and be proud of that case and see how it turns out for you. And if you're right, you'll win the elections. But you all know at this point, Hannity, Walsh, Kirk, all of you know you're not gonna win those elections because most Americans think you're the immoral ones.
Thanks for watching. If you become a member, you get to watch all this ad-free, except for, of course, this ad. Still, hit the join button below.